Hello and welcome to the Nutritionist Podcast. I'm your host Ismail Zutat. On today's episode we have a guest straight from Cyprus. Her name is Barbara. She will be discussing with us holistic nutrition and beyond that discussing all the elements from a whole systems approach. Everything from the social implications of food straight down to the individual actions one can take to improve their lives through better food choices. Now, I hope you'll be enjoying this podcast as much as I enjoyed making it. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and also to check out Barbara's links, which we have so gracefully provided in the description below. We also welcome back any feedback you may have, any topics you wish for us to discuss. Please do not hesitate to leave a comment in the comment section below. Now, without further ado, take a seat, grab some popcorn, and enjoy the episode. All the best. Welcome, everyone, to the Nutritionist Podcast. I'm your host, Ismail. On today's episode, we have Barbara. Barbara is a holistic nutritionist, and beyond that, she can remember nutrition has been a part of her life from as long as can be. Barbara was born and brought up in Zambia, but now lives in the beautiful Mediterranean island of Cyprus. She's a qualified holistic nutritionist, earning an MSc and is a member of the Pancyprian Association of Nutritionists. She holds a certification in pediatric nutrition to assist parents facing gut issues with their children from 4 months of age. She initially earned an undergraduate degree in business and finance from the University of West London and an executive certificate in management from Henley Management College. Working in business and finance sector for over 10 years, and after attending an Anthony Robbins seminar in 1996, I was negative 1 year old. Barbara realized that she wanted to follow a career that would allow her to be more directly involved in helping others. Barbara brings a blend of skills to her practice and teaching. For over 20 years, she has been committed to creating awareness about the hidden dangers to health. She promotes healthy eating, a healthy lifestyle combined with the Mediterranean diet, the raw food diet, whole food supplements, herbs, exercise, stress management, and advice for others to live a healthy lifestyle, providing them with healthy lifestyle tips. Barbara, welcome to the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. I want to start off by asking you just a little question, which is, I was reading your bio and you mentioned within it in your early 20s that a friend had lent you a book called Fit for Life. I wanted to delve into that book because it had a profound impact on your life. What is the book all about?
Well, Fit for Life in those days, I think was a very popular book. Promoting, I think, a vegetarian diet, but also very much, they also into food combining. And it had quite an impact, thinking, oh my goodness, the foods that you eat can impact your digestion, your health, and how you feel. And that was one little wake-up call that kind of started me on this little journey. Rather quite intense journey.
Quite an intense one. I mean, it's been quite a big U-turn you took, and it actually perfectly rolls over to the question which I had in mind, which is, as I mentioned, you used to work in finance, and it's quite difficult to assess someone who takes such a 180 from working within one industry that is so quantitative, and well, I suppose nutrition is in that sense, but I suppose your style is very much that sort of holistic approach. I wanted to know what takes someone to go from being someone who works in finance all the way to the polar opposite end, becoming a nutritionist, and not just a nutritionist of a clinical kind, but a holistic kind, someone who believes in the kind of the whole food system approach.
Well, it was a mix of things. I think one of the things that kind of opened the door was going to an Anthony Robbins seminar, Unleash the Power Within, back then.
When I was negative
a company here in Cyprus kind of approached a number of us, and we were a group of Cypriots. There must have been about 20 of us that went to his seminar in Geneva.
Oh, wow.
And the last day of Tony's seminar was on nutrition. And he said, well, if you want to achieve your goals, look into your nutrition, because if you haven't got the energy, how are you going to, go for them? And so that last day, which was, it must have been about 3-4 hours on nutrition, kind of was an eye opener. And when I came back to Cyprus, I was so interested in the subject that I kept on buying books week after week, week after week. I thought, well, if you're so interested in it, maybe, get a certificate in it or a degree, or, I was looking into all sorts. And at the same time, I'd kind of, a dear friend of mine had passed away from liver cancer, and then I had gone into a little bit about what holistic living is. I had read Conversations with Gods, and the holistic word kept on popping up, that, we're, body, mind, spirit, or, and so that got me interested that it's a lot more. It's not just nutrition that affects our health. You could well be an atheist. You don't have to believe in an afterlife, but your mental state and feeding your spirit, in a sense, things that make you happy, that a lot of us forget about that side.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I wanted to quickly delve into that a little bit deeper and ask you about that final seminar that you went to, where it was about nutrition. Were there any tips that you took during that time that you realized, oh my gosh, is my nutrition not good? And maybe were there subtleties that you recognized within your own life that potentially you were like, okay, well, for example, a good example from my own perspective is, when I first recognized that actually my diet was horrendous, finding out, like, because I remember when I'd first gotten into nutrition, I was quite young. And when I did that, I was obviously this young kid. And for me, for example, sweets and binge eating and probably getting into these really unhealthy eating patterns, I didn't recognize them until the moment where I kind of had that kind of light bulb Einstein moment, where I recognized a lot of my anxieties are coming from potentially that side of me where I'm eating so unhealthily. Like I would have 4 or 5 I was 14 years old going to school, 4 or 5 coffees in my system, Red Bulls, and I'm sitting there in class and I'm wondering why my hands are sweating. I'm wondering why I can't pay attention. I'm thinking, do I have ADHD? But all these years later, I'm scratching my head. I'm just thinking, of course I know now what it was. But so I kind of transfer that question onto you when you first went to a seminar and you recognized, like, oh, were there changes that you immediately noticed within your life, or were there changes that you realized that you had to make?
Well, one of the major changes was I stopped eating meat.
Oh.
And I did, the Tony's 10-day challenge back then. I'm sure it might have changed by now. So that was the first thing. I went vegan for 10 days just to see what it was like, and I felt great. As far as my diet, it wasn't too bad, because the journey goes back to when I was about let's say about 12 years old. My father had to have open heart surgery. So in those days, my mom kind of said, right, we're cleaning up our diet. So as a family, we had already started this journey. Yes, we might have had a little bit more sugar or sweets than we should have, but generally, we reduced red meat. We were eating lots of fish, vegetables, fruit, So I can't say it was really that bad. So one of the major hurdles was was sort of going vegan for a while.
Wow. I mean, you did it before everyone else did. I have to admit, it's only kind of a trend in the past, 5 years, really. Yeah. But I feel like back in the late 90s, it was such a new trend, because I mean, vegetarianism was a big thing, but veganism was the whole new step. I mean, it was considered a whole another level to it. I mean, but I mean, back then as well, if I'm correct, there must have been quite a few difficulties in going in going completely meat-free to that extent where you're also not including dairy and whatnot, because obviously you do have the fear of vitamin, say, B12 deficiency. So how
Yeah.
did you manage that through that phase of, like, especially in those early years of trying to try that out for 10 days? And well, obviously it was only 10 days, but
Well,
that's,
what did help me along was I did read a lot of books on becoming vegan and, you know, how to include, you know, the extra calcium or zinc or iron and, you know, different vitamins and minerals, B12, obviously, into my diet. I can say living in Cyprus, the largest challenge was going to social events, especially family events. I don't know if you've ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, the movie. You should. For them, it's like, oh, vegetarian, have some lamb, you know, and that describes it perfectly. So obviously, for me, it was more so the family pressure. What are you doing? Or, you know, this isn't right. And, you know, having to face that. That hurdle. But then obviously after a couple of months, you know, people got used to it, and then they would cater, or, you know, I'd take some food with me to family gatherings. But with regards to creating food or cooking or making sure I'm getting all the right nutrients, it was very exciting for me. You know, it's an educational journey, because you learn how to cook new dishes, you make sure you're including different foods, you learn about different foods and what, you know, vitamins and minerals they have, so you can make sure to include them. And then just reading about B12, well, you know, should I take a supplement, or are there any foods which do include it? And, you know, the pros, cons, different studies, and, you know, and you go along, you know, and that's, I think that the vegan journey lasted about 5 years for me. And then as I went along, you know, was studying and getting my degree in holistic nutrition, I experimented with different diets and found that the best one for me that works well with me is more a pescatarian type diet. Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, I've always found that I am a sucker for fish. I do
Yeah.
like it. I do like it. I mean, originally I'm from Algeria, so I actually find that I really, sardines, for example, are a big factor of my life. My
I
father and
love
I used to.
sardines.
It's something that I can't get enough of. And I remember when I gave vegetarianism a go, probably about 2 years ago now. I gave it a go for about a week, and I had to give up fish. And honestly, that was probably the hardest thing
Oh,
for me. I didn't mind the meat part. I mean, I find meat I can handle without, and for the
yeah.
most part, you know, in this day and age, particularly, you can live without it without much issue or trouble. You know, I feel kind of blessed to be kind of in that generation that really promotes kind of that vegan, vegetarian lifestyle. So there's plenty of options when I go to the supermarket. But when it comes to things like fish, there's no alternative to the real deal, you know? And so I gave it a go, and it didn't really work out for me. But I definitely recommend anyone who does it and, you know, really sticks to it, whether it be for ethical purposes, whether it be for health purposes. There are many different reasons why people take on these journeys, but as long as they learn something from it, I suppose that's the main point of it, right? I wanted to ask, actually, I want to delve in a little bit more about, you mentioned a holistic approach, and, you know, you were talking kind of about that kind of whole life approach and how it's far beyond just nutrition itself. It's actually within the mind itself. I wanted to ask you then, because it's a term that I really have heard many different definitions of, and it seems to have no concrete foundation, which I suppose is the whole idea of it in some odd kind of holistic way. You know, it's not meant to be grounded like clinical terms. You know, it's not meant to have a concrete foundation. But from your perspective, what would holistic be to you?
What would holistic be to me? That's a really good question. I think holistic just encompasses the whole. It means whole. And just seeing what whole means for each and every person. But if we did start from one end, it would mean, firstly, whatever has to do with the body. Then we would move on to the mind and whatever branches out from that. And then to the spirit.
Wow.
So things that feed your soul or spirit. So it could be painting, dancing, singing, having fun, whatever that means to you. And then branching out further, it could be a certain awareness, not only for yourself, but how you affect the rest of the world or the planet. So what you eat or how your actions, could be the car you drive, or whether um, the foods that you eat, whether you travel on an airplane or not, your carbon footprint, the products that you use, the clothes that you wear, it could be, how that impacts, who's made them for you.
Absolutely.
And it just goes on and on and on, how your life affects everyone else and the planet.
I really, you know what, that is a very whole systems definition, I have to say. That is a really nice definition. And I suppose it does encompass, yeah, in that sense, what really kind of profoundly touched me there is the notion of the soul as well. I suppose we always think as people that, especially from my perspective, working within a clinical background and particularly within a research background, we fall short of that, we fall short of that really human aspect of it all. And I suppose it perfectly transitions onto the notion of what food is all about, right? What is food really about? Some people treat food so clinically, and it makes for very unhealthy eating, in my personal perspective. It makes for food to not be enjoyable. I mean, yes, we can have limitations and we can set ourselves goals and we can understand how food works with us and try different things. But I find that I have definitely come across many, many different people who have very different approaches. But the one that I suppose I feel very devoid of and I feel very detached to is the one where it becomes very clinical, where it's very much calories in, very calories out. It's very much just focus on this as if there's nothing else to it. It's solely what it is. It's just numbers and that's it. And that kind of takes away the feeling of it, right? So I suppose in some sense, I don't know if you ever had, there's a great movie about it. It's called Ratatouille, right? In that movie, and in there's one scene that really gets me, and it's the near the end of the movie. And if anyone has seen the movie, if anyone hasn't seen it, please, mute this bit because it's a spoiler. But the reviewer comes in and, he's about to ask for the food, and the chef, the rats develops a ratatouille, and then when the person eats it, the critic, he's transported back in time to when he was a child and his mother used to make that very dish. And so it just goes to show that food has that emotional and memory connection, right? Where we can eat certain foods and it will remind us of our childhood, and they can remind us of pleasant memories. They can remind us of unpleasant memories. And it sort of explains as to why certain foods are grotesque in our hearts and why certain foods are not. And I suppose that opens up a whole area of how do you then deal with someone who has very specific food consumption issues, or very like food neophobia or food fussiness. And it really does touch upon that. So I think, yeah, you really capture that essence very well. And I'm happy to hear that definition. I suppose I've been asking that question for a long time and I've never really got a concise answer like that.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that.
I wanted to transition quite perfectly onto the next question, which is a bit about your work. Now, you've been working as a nutritionist now for quite a few years, and I wanted to ask then about some of the success stories and or maybe recent success stories from one of your clients, and what do they look like? Working with individuals, obviously it comes with a range of problems and also a range of successes, but I'm sure just as any other nutritionist, as I have felt with certain clients that I've had once upon a time, there are some that really stick out in memory because they were just such a U-turn in terms of how they approach life, I suppose.
Well, I think one of the success stories, a fairly recent one, was a lady had come in with some serious thyroid problems. She had a swollen thyroid and just various health issues. And so what we did is we did a food intolerance diagnostic test just to make sure and see what foods she was intolerant to. One of the things that I focus on in my work is I don't believe in a copy-paste meal plan for everyone. Everyone's unique. Everyone's different. And everyone reacts differently to different types of foods. So did the diagnostic test, saw which foods she was reacting to, removed the foods, added in, supplements, and again, worked on stress as well, because it was causing her a lot of stress. So gave some suggestions as to what she would like to try out, whether yoga would work for her, breathing exercises, taking a walk on the beach, which we're very, I guess, very privileged living here in Cyprus.
Yeah,
And,
lucky you.
20-minute drive, you're at the beach,
And it's a nice beach. It's not like the British beaches, dare I say.
No,
You have
very
lovely
nice
Mediterranean Sea around you.
And gradually over the 6 months, she was feeling much better. Her thyroid had gone back to normal. We, created different meal plans to help her, because obviously being a mom, having kids, social outings, and just teaching her how to maneuver through all of that. Because it's all right, you're in your own home, great, but as soon as you go out of that, we're social beings.
Exactly. Yeah. And do you still keep in contact with her to this day then, I suppose?
We do. I guess yes.
No, that's amazing. That's a really good story. I mean, it perfectly then transitions. What was then some of the more challenging aspects of your role? There must have been a few. I know there were for me, but I felt like every nutritionist has one.
I think if I generalize on this one, I might get shot by the male population. But I find that the men that come in that want to lose weight, but are quite rigid in not wanting to change their habits. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge. It's like, well, no, I like my beers. Well, it's okay. Well, do you have to have like 2 a day? Maybe can't we reduce it to maybe like 3 a week? And it's like, what?
It's like sacrilege to them, It's like, how could you say this? Did you just what?
So I can say that getting people to see that, well, if you want to achieve your goal, you've got, some things have to change.
Exactly. Yeah. And often that change is sacrifice.
That is one of the largest challenges that I've got.
Wow. I mean, I completely agree with the notion that there's often this aspect of change from within, right? So I've noticed that I've had a few individuals in my life that I used to be a personal trainer even back in the day. So I've done many different roles in my time, but one of the ones that really got me was I had a client who, they had the will to change, I suppose. They came to me and they spoke to me about how they really were unhappy with the way they looked and they really wanted a change in their life. And so that's the first step of change, is recognizing that you want change. And so that was a great thing for me. I recognized, hey, that's great for you that you have that. So now it's about putting that change into action. So how do we do that? It's putting that into action. I find, and as a man, I feel like I can say most men have that problem, is we love to think a goal. Putting that goal into action is a whole different it's a whole different story. And because it does come with sacrifice. Often sacrifice is a big part of change. And I suppose when you're comfortable in a routine, and I suppose comfort becomes a big part of it, right? When your lifestyle, what is it humans hate the most is change. We do not like having to adapt to more difficulty. Well, we like to adapt to difficulty. We like to thrive in it. But the notion is whenever we're comfortable in a situation, we now don't want to leave.
Though where loose change makes something of itself deal. Because only at McDonald's can a stop at the toll booth turn into an impromptu breakfast stop.
Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?
It's hard to beat any size McCafe iced coffee for 99 cents until 11 a.m. But pairing it with the new Cheese Danish is a good way to try. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Football is back, and BetMGM is inviting new customers to join the huddle and enjoy the action like never before. Sign up today using bonus code CHAMPION, and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. You'll also have instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, player props, and boosted odds specials. Just download the BetMGM app today or go to BetMGM.com and enter bonus code CHAMPION and place your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. The BetMGM app is the perfect way to experience the excitement of wagering on live sports, now in more markets than ever. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Virginia only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-888-532-3500.
Even if that situation was adverse to begin with, once we're comfortable in it, we just don't want to get out of it. It's almost like those, I don't know if you've ever seen those people who are addicted to a certain level of stress, where, for example, when you extrapolate them from that stress and put them in a calm room, they go insane. Like, they just don't know what to do. It's too quiet. It's too relaxed. There's classical music. I hate it. Oh my gosh. So I had one guy who had that, and he was a banker. So it explains a lot. He really had a bad time in that. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that in certain people, particularly for yourself working in that industry. I mean, you must have seen it yourself.
Well, I think more so, I'd like to add to what you've said, and it's more so pleasure. Yes. I get pleasure from that. You know, I get pleasure from eating or drinking my beer. I get pleasure from, having a chocolate. And I always try and say, well, can we create other avenues? Can we, try and see where we can get, pleasure from something else? Could it be a certain hobby or a sport? Or, and then if it comes to food, I always say, for example, well, is there a healthier option? Let's say you like chocolate mousse and it's filled with fresh cream and, sugar and, I don't know. Well, can we try and substitute that with a healthier option? For example, there's avocado chocolate mousse. So at least you're getting, the healthy fats, and you're getting antioxidants from cacao, and you're getting some goodness from it as well, Yeah, no,
I agree. I mean, there are aspects like that. I suppose it goes back to this notion of food fussiness, right? So I have certain people who only eat a certain brand of chocolate, and let's just name it chocolate. A certain brand of banana. I've never seen people who eat a certain brand of banana. They only eat chiquita. That's all they will eat. And I'm like, but all bananas are the same. And they're like, no. Chiquita bananas are different. I have to have chiquita bananas. But I'm like, they're all the same, right? And there's no other different species of banana. They're all one species. They just won't believe me. They refuse to believe me. They taste the difference. There's something psychological there, which I suppose does exist to some extent, right? Once we're used to seeing certain things. Like, for example, I hate, and I will say this without that, I hate instant coffee. I can't do it. It has to be the fresh blend. I have to grind it, and I have to make it the right way. Even if it's in a cafetiere, I prefer that. But what I can't do is that freeze-dried stuff. It just isn't my thing. Is
it the Algerian roots there that come up? Like here in Cyprus, we have the Cyprus coffee where we get
It's delicious.
Brown coffee, and we cook it in our,
That's it. Yeah, it's a Mediterranean thing. I think, I think also being from, I suppose this is actually perfectly adds on to this next question, which is, being someone from the Mediterranean, there is this area where I'm thinking, well, you're from Cyprus. Yeah. Surely within this region, the Mediterranean diet is so prevalent, is my assumption, right? But is that the case anymore, is my question. Being a nutritionist, do you see because in the West, well, I say in the West, in Britain and America and whatnot, they promote this Mediterranean diet as if all of Italy, Greece, Spain, and all these places, they only ever eat the Mediterranean diet. But is that really the case? Or are we seeing a shift? Being someone who works within the front line there, working with individuals, have you noticed within the past few years, or even now, or has it always been the case that there's a creeping up of, say, highly over-processed foods, excessive sugar consumption, and just bad dietary habits?
I have, and it makes me quite sad when I do see it, because the Mediterranean diet offers a very good basis for healthy eating, for a balanced diet, an authentic Mediterranean diet, not the one that it has evolved to today. But we have seen that Greece, Cyprus, and a lot of the other Mediterranean countries are on the rise with regards to obesity. And I can say that is due to modern living. You've got moms who are really, really busy. They're, going to work, maybe not having enough time to cook, and resort to buying quick foods, junk foods, to feed their families, which are overly processed, high in fats, sugar, salt. And that's where I come in with a lot of the mummies that come to see me. As I said, there are faster there are other options. You can make it work if you just know how to plan, how to put it in your diet. And it's sort of saying, well, let's go back to our roots. Because the Mediterranean diet does have a lot to offer. You've got your pulses, you've got your poultry, your fish, seafood, eggs, you've got goats, cheeses, you've got we've got nuts and seeds here. So you've got your almonds, your walnuts, pistachios. I mean, that's in our backyard. Tahini, sesame paste, which is absolutely amazing and very nutritious.
You're selling me a dream. I'm going to have to move there at some point.
Yes. You're welcome. Even the red wine, yes, have some red wine. You can have a little bit with your meal, or, it's just not the overindulgence of it. I think one of the negatives of the Mediterranean diet is the sweets, the desserts. So we've got things like baklava, which is, all the syrup and the...
yes, my mouth is watering just thinking about it.
So it's kind of saying, well, yes, with the desserts, they are traditional, but they're laden in syrup, sugary syrup. So let's just keep that to the minimum. But the diet does have a lot to offer.
Yeah, no, well, this is it. I mean, there's so much research that has been done on it, and we know the benefits of it. But I suppose this is something that I mean, a big part of the research that I've come across in my time is just how within the Mediterranean itself, within that whole region, it's starting to slip away. It's starting to now deviate, and it's not like the Mediterranean diet is now spreading over and spilling over. It's the opposite, where now the Western diet is now spilling within the realms of say, the Mediterranean region, which in the past had proven effects on better health. And this is why you had the old nannies who lived to hundreds of years old, and that's starting to slip away now. And I'm you do see it more and more and more. And I suppose you really touched on a fantastic point, which is this big switch in kind of culture as well, where back in the day, the mummies would stay at home and they would cook and whatnot, and there would be that kind of concerted effort from one household individual who would be that nutritional gatekeeper. She would be making sure that everyone was fed. But now that we have like kind of this notion of everyone's at work all the time, they're doing crazy hours and they're coming home, and what options are left on the table? There are only so many, and fast food becomes the more viable of all those options. So I think that you really touch on a fantastic point there. And I suppose for any members of our audience listening, to recognize that the household, in the one who's in charge of the cooking should recognize that whether it be the father, the mother, I think everyone should kind of get involved, have a day to learn these things, and to try and find a concerted effort to make sure that home cooking is kept to an absolute high, while eating out is kept to an absolute minimum. So that's my theory as well. I don't know. What would you add to that?
Yeah, well, in the Mediterranean, cooking is a family matter. Everyone's in the kitchen, everyone's chopping something or helping to cook, and also family meals are very important. Sitting around together at the dinner table, and it's not just enjoying the meal together, you connect. You speak to each other, you find out about each other's days, and that's becoming less and less, whereas people are,
Eating
feeding
alone
the
and
kids
yes,
or
yeah,
just eating in front of the TV and, not connecting. And
yeah.
I think cooking together as a family in the kitchen and then eating the meal together at the dinner table connects. It brings families together instead of tearing
Instead of
them
the opposite.
apart.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you actually touched on a really good point. Food is a social thing.
It's a
Eating
social.
is a social act, and it's, as social beings, we need to remember that. And I think it's something that no other nutritionist has ever really spoken of to me. So I'm really glad we've touched upon this point, because I think we always talk about healthy, healthy, healthy all the time. We forget a big part of it is healthy, but not alone.
But not
Healthy,
alone.
yeah,
Exactly.
healthy with a group. Some of the best dinners I've ever had are with my dearest friends and family. And so that there's nothing that beats it. There's no other feeling in the world. Sometimes there's that kind of, that big melancholy feeling, when you're sitting in the living room and he's like, I was just feeling a bit sad, you're alone. I remember when I was at university, that was the worst for it. But then during the holidays, when I'd come back home, and the first thing was you'd sit around the table and the dinner's out, and this is great. This is amazing, And there wouldn't even be the taste of the food. The food was average. I didn't mind the food. It was more just the people that accompanied. There's
that you're
just the best.
with, that you're with. I
Exactly.
mean, it's so
Absolutely.
important to us, I think.
Oh,
And for mental health,
yeah,
so if you are alone, get together with friends.
absolutely.
If you've got
Absolutely.
a good neighbor, cook a lovely meal, invite them over. I mean, there's connection with other people is very important, I think.
I feel like we're going to make a utopia with this podcast. I feel we're going to, if the right audience see it, the whole world starts changing. You start seeing neighbors going to neighbors' homes, cooking food for each other, and it's just going to be like a movie, right? Everyone's just, oh my God, we listened to Barbara and Ishmael's podcast. We now know. We now know.
Well, come to Cyprus,
You have my word. You have my word. I will be there. And if I do go over there, I'll be throwing you a
look me
message.
up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Moving on to a kind of a more a topic on business, I suppose. I know this is a kind of
Yes.
topic, but I wanted to know a little bit about sort of the primary tips you'd give for anyone out there seeking to, well, I suppose, start their own nutrition business, or maybe someone who's just graduated, because obviously our audience are nutritionists for the most part. These are individuals who are seeking to understand better how to run their practices. But as well as that, it's for individuals to trying to recognize, well, what am I doing? What can I take on? And what tips could I get from some of the best out there? So what would you provide as a tip?
What would I promote as a tip? um, just looking back on my journey, I think I did open up a little office straight away, just so I have my base. And it was in a center. It was in a center, so at least that helped. So I didn't have to go and rent an apartment on my own and pay all the bills. So I was part of another wellness center. And I would just work on one of the important aspects is marketing yourself and seeing where you'd like to market yourself. Whether is it sports? Is it, for example, with me, it's with mums, busy mums that need help, or organizing their life, or and then gradually seeing how you'd like to put out that message. You're good at writing, so maybe you could start a blog. Is it with podcasting? Do you like making videos? Public speaking, going to different organizations or schools, or, just getting yourself out there. I think that's one of the most important parts to being a nutritionist.
Absolutely.
Is marketing yourself.
This is very true. I mean, I see this so often with probably the majority of businesses out there, and it can be nutrition or anything else, where someone doesn't have the capacity to really sell themselves, or no matter. And what I mean by that is, people say, what does selling yourself mean? Well, not like selling your identity to something you're not. No, it's about being truly authentic to yourself. If you are who you are, take that, bottle it, and show it to the world. And whatever you feel comfortable, whatever medium you feel is the best for you. If you are a writer, as you say, write blogs. And if you are someone who speaks, create podcasts. We're doing it now, and if you are someone who, for example, enjoys artwork, create posters, it's, the avenues, as you say, towards marketing are just endless. And I suppose for anyone out there seeking to start a business and they're seeking to what is the best way to increase my outreach, well, I suppose the most important thing is I've seen a lot of people rush their marketing. They rush it. They think it's just something they just have to do. Oh, this is a side project. Because I feel like at school, right, we never really are taught that creative element within us. We're never taught to capture it. And unless if you have artistic tendencies within your early life, you'll never really capture that. You'll always assume everything has to be from this quantitative perspective where it's just, okay, well, I'm going to do it from raw numbers. I need to measure the numbers. But actually the creative aspect, or the creative perspective is probably the most important, because I know that I'm always sold on something, not on the numbers. 9 times out of 10, I'm sold on what the voices I'm hearing, the passion in the voices, the beauty of the work. Michelangelo's works were not great because they were just geometrically perfect. Maybe they were, but it's the beauty of it. It's what he's trying to convey. It's the overall sculpture. And so, we can do a lot of maths on the sculpture, and maybe you can sell me on the fact that it has all these perfect symmetries, but for me, it's not the numbers there that get me. It's really just the marbling and the absolute amazing design of some of the work he's done. So that's a really good point that you make.
I would also just kind of like to add that you evolve and grow and you develop your own style. So whether you've just come out of, graduate school, you're working for a while, and you develop your own styles gradually, because you evolve and grow as a person. Absolutely. And your interests, and you try one thing or another, and then as you get older and more experienced, you develop your own style and uniqueness.
What would you say your style is then? Do you have a particular style that you're particularly sold on in terms of how you promote yourself? Because I see your website, it has such an array of different perspectives. You have an articles, and you're an author as well, if I'm correct. Yeah. So you've done many things. You've taken many avenues. What would you say your favorite avenue has been personally from your perspective?
My favorite one, and I think it's kept me going through all these years, in the sense it's what I developed over time, is a healthy eating or lifestyle system. As we put systems in our work, we can also put it, in a sense, in our nutrition. And so it's, well, let's say like basic 7 steps. So what I try and teach my clients is, so let's say rule number 1, include a fruit meal a day. What does that mean? That could be in the form of a smoothie, just whole fruit, a little fruit salad, add a fruit meal. Rule number 2, one of your meals is a salad meal. Have a salad with a topping or a couple of toppings, whether you want some, shrimp or prawns or chickpeas, one of your meals is salad based. The 3rd rule is herbs and spices. They are so beneficial for health. And that could be, like with me, I have at least 3 mugs of herbal tea. And it depends how I'm feeling that day. Herbs and spices have different medicinal properties or benefits for the human body. The next one is exercise.
What sort of exercise would you say is your forte? I'm assuming.
My forte, I love is swimming.
Ooh.
Swimming is my
very
and
Cyprian.
Walking. Yeah.
I love that. You have a big pool in your backyard. It's called.
No. We've got.
You got the sea.
We've got the sea, but no, there's a municipal pool. It's a 50-meter pool, so we go there with a group, and there's a coach where we do our swimming training, and
I'm so sold. I'm so sold on Cyprus. I know exactly where I want to go now, and I think this whole podcast is basically me trying to recognize maybe I should go to Cyprus.
Definitely, yeah.
Oh, that's a really good line. I want to finish off this podcast by asking you a little question that I've been asking all my guests that have been coming on, and it's a little funny one that I've taken on from an old radio show I used to listen to called Desert Island Discs. And in that show, in the end, they always ask the guests, what 3 albums they would bring to this desert island to listen to. But instead of that, obviously, as this is a nutritionist podcast, I want to ask you, if you're in a desert island, 3 foods you would like to bring with you, and a little reasoning as to why. So do you have 3 particular foods that you would, if you were in a desert island, and that desert island can't be Cyprus now. It has to be some desert island somewhere in the Pacific, let's say. And let's say you can only bring with you 3 foods. And like I said, the context here can be in any context. So yes, you have a grill if you want to grill. That is not to worry. Water, a lot of people mention water, and I understand water is big. Well, let's assume water is a given in this context. So 3 foods that you would have to bring with you, and why?
Well, I think the first one for me would be a so-called superfood. So it would be spirulina.
Ooh, good shout.
I love spirulina, and it is jam-packed with nutrients and vitamins and minerals. And I think, living alone on spirulina, that would be fine, even if I didn't have another 2 foods to mention. Mm-hmm. The first one, spirulina. The second one, I think I would go for something that's more like an antibacterial or antiviral if I did catch something. So it would be maybe it'd be something I'd be worried about. So maybe like some oregano or
I love that. That's understandable.
Or here we've got there's a spice from the Greek island of Chios. It's called masticha, and that's quite good. It kills off, quite a few things, or helps with stomach bugs and things like that. So the third one I think would be just a nutritious food for me. So what would it be?
It's always tough on the third ones.
Maybe some maybe berries.
I like that. Good shout, berries. It's a very interesting 3. Imagine there's 3 huge crates. They're being shipped now, and they're in the helicopter, and they're coming down, and they got the parachute. You've been starving for days. Oh my, spirulina's here. Yes.
I would feel safer with it in my life. I think I'm just with the spirulina, I'm covered.
You're covered. It'll be good. Oh, thank you so much.
Look, my reasoning is that if I'm on an island, surely I'd be able to find some fruits or something, even coconuts,
That's, yeah. Do you know what? I will accept that within that context, that there are other foods that are available within the island.
Maybe I'll have to learn how to fish.
Yeah, potentially. You know what? You never know. I've seen Castaway. It doesn't take that long. If you get the spears right, you'll be good. Barbara, thank you so much for being on this podcast, and I really want to, give a massive thank you to you. I know it's quite early in the morning for a lot of us, but we did very, very well. And I want to give a little shout out to our audience. I'll be posting a link to all of Barbara's social media, her website, and other interesting tips and links that she'll provide me that I'll also provide within the description of this video, so that you can check her out. And if you are living in Cyprus, I heavily recommend to pop Barbara a call. And if you're a young mum and looking to have some changes within your diet, you know who to go to now. So there you go. I want to give a massive thank you also to NutriAdmin for sponsoring this podcast. And on that note, wish you all the best and have a lovely day. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode. Before we finish, I just wanted to let everyone know that this podcast was brought to you by NutriAdmin.com, the all-in-one software for nutritionists and dietitians that allows you to run your practice efficiently and all in one place. NutriAdmin has been serving thousands of nutritionists, dietitians, and personal trainers since 2016. The software is rated 4.7 stars out of 5 amongst users. New features and improvements are also being added all the time. To learn more about how NutriAdmin can help you cut down on paperwork, create meal plans, and handle your admin work more effectively and efficiently, please visit NutriAdmin.com. We offer a 14-day free trial, and if you enter the promo code podcast50, that's podcast50, upon sign up, you'll get 50% off for the first 2 months of your subscription. Thank you very much.
This holiday, treat the whole family to Hannah Anderson's best pajamas ever. unbelievably soft organic cotton pajamas your whole family will want to wear all season long. Dozens of one-of-a-kind iconic prints, guaranteed to find one you and your family will love. Turn everyday moments into holiday memories with the original family pajamas. Hannah Anderson, best pajamas ever. Shop now at hannahanderson.com.